Hey, or it's, what's the other fellow's name? Your sales rep, the refinery guy.
Oh, the refinery guy
Great.
is Robert Stanley.
Robert Stanley. So, but I mean, when they'll go out to the job site and write up a whole, when that is happening on every job site,
But United's only got, what's the percentage of the market that United's got? We used to
oh, it's
like-
very small.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
'Cause
still
there's
very
a
small.
lot of independents and stuff.
Yes.
Like a Big Bear, you know?
Yeah.
There's no United up there.
Yeah.
There's Big Bear Rents or whatever they call them. They
Yeah.
got just like Home Depot stuff, you know?
And it'll get
Then
there.
you got Home Depot renting stuff out.
Which
too.
they're starting in, here's what's weird. In Australia, they're neck and neck with the biggest independent that's there, a company called Kennard's, because I know the Kennard family. And they're neck and neck with them there. What you see here is like, they've only got 6 or 8 of those full-on branches. I think they have one in Las Vegas. I know they got one in Phoenix, I think. Anyway, then there's a couple back east and that's it. They really haven't, I don't know why that's happening. Okay, so are we going now?
Yeah, we can go now.
All
we
right.
got Will, me, and Jorge. And
Okay, all righty. So I'm going to start with the bigger units and go to the smaller units. Everybody, I think, is there anybody here that doesn't know what they're being used for? But let's just go through it. As we move from the smaller to the larger, what happens is that you start off with one of our, there's a very, very small tool, which I didn't bring along with me, but it's a flux scaler. And it's just a very, very small chipper. It's only about that long, very light. It's a single-handed unit. You move from that, why do you keep stepping up? Because you can't get the work done in a reasonable period of time. What's a reasonable period of time? Somewhere between 15, maybe 20 seconds. If the chipping hammer isn't working, you move up to the rivet buster. You hit the 15, 20 seconds on the rivet buster, well, the rivet buster is a bit of a cheat. We'll go back to that. But you move from the rivet buster up to, say, a 30-pound breaker like this, then a 60-pound breaker and a 90-pound breaker, and the same rule applies. If you're not getting through the work in that period of time, you're just beating yourself up and beating the tool up. If you get to the point where you're beyond that, you've got 2 choices. You can either go with a big hydraulic breaker on a skid steer, or if you can get it in, or an excavator, or you can use dynamite. You know, I mean, or other explosive devices, or rock splitters, that sort of thing. But generally speaking, these tools do a tremendous amount of work for a relatively small amount of money, especially if you've already got plant air, which in your case is virtually 99% of your client base. For the customer that needs a compressor, which is your gen rents groups, still, you're out on a job site, you're taking this tool away, all that power is really being produced by that compressor or by that plant air. And so what's out in the hands of the client is something that's considerably lighter and easier to use. At the rivet buster size, you're not going to keep going horizontal beyond that. And frankly, using a rivet buster on its side, you're not going to do that for very long either, because this tool's going to weigh 30 to 40 pounds depending on what you've got on the tool. When you're using the larger tools, the 90-pound breakers, we have both a standard handle, which is what you see here. I did not bring one of our vibration dampened handles, but we do have them. And they have a spring-loaded top on them, so when you're using the tool, you don't absorb as much vibration in your hands, and you can use the tool longer. Most of the time on most of the job sites now, it's something that's very interesting. I don't know how far it's going as far as being enforced, but my understanding is that most of your operators are not supposed to use a larger tool with that type of vibration for more than 2 or 3 hours a day. So I don't know how that's being enforced. I don't have any idea, but I do know that they've been told that. There's 2 reasons for that. One is the vibration, like we're talking about, which you can minimize by doing. The other thing is just the weight of the tool. If you're using a 90-pound breaker or a 60-pound breaker, by the time you end up at the end of the day, because I've done it before and doing demonstrations, you're going to have to lift it out of the hole like this, because this isn't working anymore. There's only so many, shoulder shrugs you can do before it just stops functioning. Unless you're a monster, which I've seen a couple of those people, very rare. The reason I brought the cutaways is because I think it's important to understand what makes the tool work. The air, of course, comes in through your air inlet right here by pushing this valve down, which you can see up here. This little flapper valve, that goes back and forth 1,350 times a minute, which this creates this going back and forth that many times, which then hits your comes down here and hits your striker right here, your striker piston. Striker piston comes down and hits your tool steel, and that's what creates the breakage. These wear out. These don't wear out as often, but they do wear out. If you wouldn't mind, just come over right here and you can actually feel how tight that is inside there. And the reason that that creates a serious problem on the job site is because contaminants get in here, which is why every single tool that United uses should go out with these. They come with it if you order the tools from us and you order the United Rentals, the UR dash number. They come standard with a whip oiler combination. This is a smaller oiler. This isn't designed for that tool. This is designed for the chipping hammers and rivet busters. And there's 2 different sizes, actually 3 or 4 different sizes. This is the medium size. I didn't bring the larger one, but everybody probably recognizes inline oiler on these. And so depending on the size of the hole opening, you can use different tools. The 2 liters would be what would come with this. This is a smaller unit, but at any rate, you hook this in line. I don't know how many of you have seen the inside of one of these. There's a very, very simple screw. You've seen it a million times. That screw adapter, can you see that okay, Jorge? Yes, sir. Okay, and that's an adjustment. And it's about the world's simplest adjustment. And here's why I say that. What you do is you fill this with oil, put the cap back on, start up the tool, and you wait to see what's coming out the exhaust. If you're not getting a fine mist of any oil coming out of here, you need to open that up. If it comes out of here and it's a heavy mist or it's even dripping oil, it's too much. You need to dial it back. You need to get a fine mist of oil coming out. And it won't matter which tool this is. It won't matter if it's a 90-pound breaker, 30-pound breaker, your 131 air tamper, rock drills, chipping hammers, rivet busters, they all work the same. What you want is a very, very fine mist of oil coming out. I don't really understand exactly how the rules work anymore as far as the EPA goes, but they've never said anything about that. So we also have silenced cones for all of these, which it actually quiets the tool down dramatically. Frankly, it's a little more back pressure than what would should necessarily go through the tool, but it does quiet it down. We also have dust reduction pieces that can go on the bottom of the tool if that's something you want to do with a fine mist of water. So if you run into a situation where that's a requirement, you reach out to us. And the best part about all of this is, where do the tools come from? Anaheim. Where's our national warehouse? Anaheim. So if you want to come over and pick up 50 of these, you could literally call right now. By the time you got your truck over there, about an hour, they'll all be ready to go sitting on a pallet for you, which is a very rare thing these days, because that's actually pretty much almost every order that we get. If the customer wants it shipped, we will ship it that day. Now, if it's afternoon, sometimes it goes the next morning. We ship 97%, I think, or 96% complete, which, needless to say, there's a lot of estimating at the beginning of the year. I've been trying desperately to get a hold of anybody that knows anything about what's going on with the Army Corps over here, so that we can make sure that we have enough tools around when they get to the point where they're using smaller tools. I've yet to reach anybody. And we did have a situation last year at the end of the year where a large client, SoCalGas, ordered $1.2 million worth of tools. We ship about $18 to $20 million worth of tools out of that warehouse every year. So that was an unexpected order. It took a little over a month to get all that out the door. So, you know, are we going to have situations? But the reason it took a little over a month is, guess what? United still needed tools. Herc still needed tools. We didn't pirate all the tools away because we already had our estimates for them. So we're wanting to make sure that you still got the tools that you needed as well. So sometimes if you get an unusual order, the sooner you can let us know, the faster we can take care of that. So back to the breakers. Not going to spend a lot of time on these because you spend more time on the smaller tools, but Your gen rents groups are just gonna, these are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. You got 60-pound breakers, you got 90-pound breakers. You use 1 and 1/8 steel on all of your breakers, right? On all the bigger ones. Okay, so they've standardized on that. Very important to note that we make these tools in both 1 and 1/8 and 1 1/4 shank size. That's true of these tools as well. You use 1-inch tool steel on your smaller 30-pound breakers. Important to make sure that you get that right. If you've got a client buying a tool, which by the way, you're welcome to sell tools, and everything that you're seeing here is how it comes when we sell the tool, not how we send you all of the whip oiler combos. When we sell these, they come just the way you see them in the boxes here, and that's why I wanted to show them to you. They come with a whip hose on some of the tools not, but that's not an automatic. But your pricing, well, United's pricing on air tools, nobody gets United's prices except United. So let's say as an example, you're competing with somebody. If you're wondering what you should price it at, really, seriously, give me a call, because you don't need to leave money on the table. Your pricing is so good that you can do things, on top of which every tool that you get from us is freight free. So it's nice for LA, you might be able to go, we'll call it, but let's say that it's in fact, I just was watching yesterday, the ones that I thought were going to you, those rivet busters, they were all loaded up. He was loading them on they are going to United. They're going to United in Haverhill, in Massachusetts. So the point is that all tools that you get from us, all of your tools, all your parts, all your accessories, everything is factory freight free. So your price is your price, and we're going to get it out the door in a big hurry. And just happens to be right here. If we move over here, this is the, I wanted to show it to you, but I also wanted you to see, I'm going to move this off in just a second. I wanted to see this is how we pack this tool. So it comes with, of course, your extension handle, which has, of course, your valve on it. But I just wanted you to see that it does not come with this tool does not come with a, whip oiler combo, but I think there's, yeah, so, but because it's got you've got your adapter right here, and that's in the box with your Chicago fittings. If you don't want Chicago fittings, we just need to know. We can put Thor, we can put...
Do these have built-in oilers in them?
They do have a built-in, thanks, good point. They do have a built-in oiler in them. That is what you see here. This one I think just goes in, yeah, you just put that one in the, this one doesn't come with a separate, oh, it's right there, sorry. Good catch. So anyway, you can open this up, and you should put some oil in this reservoir. Do you absolutely have to have it if you're using an inline oiler appropriately? No, you don't ever need to do it. Most customers will tell you, well, I put some oil in it this morning. That's not really going to cut it. And here's the problem with not using oil. This is a very, very tight setup, both on the driving piece up here and on your piston down here. As you can see, these are very, very tight. You wouldn't not put oil in your car. These tolerances, there's no rings or anything on these things. There's no give, no play, and it's very common for a tool. Can anybody tell me? I know he knows. Don't answer. How much water goes through a tool during the course of a warm day from, let's say, a 185 compressor, or for that matter, plant air, if you're 50 feet away from the tool?
Probably a lot.
5 gallons. Because that's what happens with the condensation. If you don't have that oiler on there, that's going straight in the tool. And what do they do with it? They take the tool when they're done, usually throw it in the dirt. It's very common. But if not, they might just put it down somewhere, and then it goes and sits. Well, the moisture's still inside the tool. All this is nice, but it's just steel. It's going to rust, it's going to, and they get them back, of course, back here. And I imagine you go through a lot of emery cloth. Does you use emery cloth, or what do you use to clean them off with? Wire wheel?
Cylinder hones.
Cylinder hones, okay. And most of your gen rents branches don't have a clue about taking these apart. I mean, I'd be surprised if, do you even let them do it anymore? Do they do it?
We don't have
We
that
used to
much
have a
engagement
small
with
shop
them, so.
At the 503.
Right.
And they took care of all this stuff.
Okay.
So there was Bob, who used to work here. When he was over there, he did all that too.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know if they even have small shops now that they have tools. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, it's most of the bigger groups are not doing that. They're just going, look, don't touch it, send it in, because they're more worried about what's happening with the 65, 85 foot boom, the big scissors, the rough terrains, the forward reaches.
Hey, before you move on,
Yeah,
we're talking about oilers again.
yes,
Talk about the placement of where this whip hose and oiler should be
they're important.
in relation to your compressor.
Can anybody tell
your
me
tool.
why it's on the whip hose? Why do you want it on the whip hose? You don't want it more than 6 to 8, maybe 10 feet away from the tool. And the reason is very simply, this oil, when it's coming out of here, it won't travel the length of a hose. It'll coat the hose, does a great job of coating the hose. It's never going to get to the tool. So instead, what you get going to the tool, of course, is all the water that I was talking about. So you go to a lot of job sites, including some of your own in the field for the Genrance groups, and you'll see this, not because you're doing it, but because your customer's doing it. They'll put this oiler on the compressor itself. And
then you got 20, 30 feet of hose, and then your tool.
Well, actually, minimum 50.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody uses anything less than 50. In some cases, they make longer hoses. You can actually buy 100, if you want to, you could buy a 200-foot length of hose. And, we'll get to that in a minute. But, yeah, you don't want it any further than that. Good point. Thank you for bringing that up. These tools, I don't know do you rent many of these out? Probably not. Because do you
That's a
handle it?
Genrant class, isn't it?
It's an
Or
air
a camper?
tamper.
We have a couple.
Yeah, it's not something you're big on. The only reason I wanted you to see it is because it's a little different. You see the packings in here that are in the tool. The main thing I wanted you to see, because we'll show it in the others, is this is the same thing as this. And you see how little that moves back and forth, just the slightest amount of contamination in there. And we didn't have this when you came over to the meeting. But the slightest bit of contamination in here, these things will get gummed up. Those will easily get gummed up, and then the tool just sits there and always your favorite sound, not good. So they just stop operating. I'm going to leave that one alone then, because it's not something that you spend a lot of time on. All right, here comes all the fun. So you have a couple of different tools that you use. I should think that most of your tools going out of here are this one, right? With the outside trigger, is that correct? Do you have any of the 2 bolts? This one?
You have to ask John.
Not many of them though, I wouldn't think. You're not going, oh yeah, I know what that's.
Like that.
Yeah, most of them are going to be like this. This takes a standard, what we call spring retainer. Let me see which one's which. There we go. And as you can see, very, very simple. It's got a oval collar in there. So what you can do is you can actually take your tool steel, which is oval collared, you can put it up in the bottom, turn it sideways and drop it back down. This has to be, removed from the tool in order for it to do that, otherwise it would fall out. Once it falls back in that position, you put your retainer spring back on and the tool's ready to go. Now, that's okay, but I think for the most part, and I can't remember if you're using bolt-on or are you using these?
We have some of those.
You have some of them, but it's not a standard to use these? Okay. Anyway, a lot of my clients, especially the CAT branches and some of the other groups, they have gone to these standard. And what this is if you look, there's a bunch of ball bearings inside there. And so what you do is you take a round collar piece of steel. You don't have to take the retainer off. So it's very, very quick. It's a quick change retainer with that in mind. Very, very similar to taking on and off the spline drive impact sockets, which I imagine you go through quite a bit. Do you have spline drive here on your impacts? Not so much? Mostly square?
Yeah, we do.
You do, okay. So these tools, it's convenient, it's more expensive, and depends on what the client, is specifying. And then we also make this, and where's my other one? Thought I had a bolt-on here. Oh, there it is, okay. So then here's the bolt-on version of that. So it's more permanent, and this one has a spring retainer. This one has the bolt-on, and it just sits in the same spot as you would normally have. If you look inside there, you can see where that tightens down on that same retainer ring site. So why the two different chipping hammers? We don't just have two, unfortunately, as I was explaining to Jorge earlier, and I think anybody else that'll listen, they are the bane of my existence. And the reason is it's one of the least expensive tools we have, and we have 4 different versions that we have: a 4-bolt, we have the 2-bolt, we have a outside trigger and an inside trigger chipping hammer. And we have all of these different types of retainers. We also have, in addition to everything else, we also have hex as well as round tool steel that goes inside there. Can anybody tell me why we have the hex? We have the hex because a lot of people are doing chipping with wider chipping hammers or even narrower chipping hammers. They don't want, when they're working on their job, if they're doing a lot of chipping and they're using either narrow or wide chisels, they don't want that to move around. So if they put it in there, what is the other thing that happens occasionally with these? And you will see it at some point. If you're buying hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of tools from us or anybody else, when the shank was pressed in, because it is just a press fit that adds that shank difference inside there, somewhere in the Monday or a Friday, who knows, it got cocked. If you ever see that, pick up the phone, give us a call, and we'll either come out and we'll either do a deal and replace it with you, which is what we do most of the time because it's just faster, especially when you're down here, or we will take it in and we will press it out and put it back in, and you'll have the tool back in no time. It's just something that occasionally happens. Is it common? No. Have I had it happen? Probably 6 times in the last 2.5 years with clients that are buying literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tools. Why? I don't know why. Okay, so we go from the chipping hammer, and I wanted you to see again how tight these things are. And you can just take your finger. We took the spring out because the spring kept falling out on this one. But if you just take that, you can see how it works. And then here's that same flapper that I was talking about. You can see how tight that is in there. And that this, again, how tight that little valve is. And then, when you get the customers calling them from the field, and they're going, well, it's just hissing. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. Well, needless to say, most of the time, there's some sort of dirt, dust, something in there that's causing that. Is that the only thing that can happen? No, but about 9 times out of 10, that's what it is. How do I clear that? You can clear it with some Dawn dishwashing, literally soap. Just spray it right in. Don't spray it into the oiler, but just take it apart and put it into the tool itself, or into the hose that's going directly into the tool. Put a little water in there with it and run it through the tool. Should I tell them the rest of it? Because it's actually the best. Okay.
Yep.
That's it. Okay. Just put these over there. All right. So now we're into rivet buster parts and pieces that get commonly used all the time. And I want to show you how this is, without a doubt, in my opinion, one of the coolest tools ever made. It is a 30-pound tool that hits just as hard as a 60 or 90-pound breaker. And if I was out and we had concrete out here, I could show you. If I put this on the test stand, which, by the way, if you want to talk about these, we could discuss this at some point. It's very, very impressive display. I'm not sure how you test the ones that you have. You see this piece of conveyor belting here?
Yeah.
Okay, very thick, kind of heavy. That's going to a show next month for me in Arizona for CAT. We're going out to the training grounds. And I said, I've got to be able to demonstrate this tool, but I'm sick and tired of trying to figure out how to get concrete. They make those boxes so like you can test things in them, which is what we did that time you were there. We had the concrete. When you mix up concrete and put it in, it gets really heavy, right?
You got a roll of a fire hose.
Same thing, same principle. And basically what you do is you run on you can tell real quick if it's working right, because once you turn it on, this thing is hitting so hard, it really almost boggles your mind. Technically speaking, it's a much lighter tool, but because the stroke is so long on this, it's 8 inches on this one. We also make it in an 11-inch stroke. We make it in a 6-inch stroke as well. But because the stroke is so long on this piston, and we got a couple different sizes of pistons here. And why would you use one over the other? The bigger piston hits harder. It goes in the larger tool. This is the piston that's in this tool. We also went to putting sleeves on them, which we did not have for the longest time, as I was explaining yesterday. These pistons used to just drop out of here. Well, if you don't have that on, can you imagine what might happen? If I fired that off on one that was open and I had a 185, it comes out just like a mortar round. Sounds exactly like a mortar round. And it will go probably a quarter of a mile or more. And as you can see, not light. It's actually really cool. Yeah, you want to see the demo. I did the demo. I'm not sure how I feel about having done that at the time, but I did do the demo. Yeah, it is. It's yeah. So you don't ever want to be, and a lot of tools that are out there, people say, well, why do you keep talking about this if you have the sleeve on it? When I had, as I explained to Jorge yesterday, and I explained in most of my classes, when I was working with my father's company, I went to a PG&E auction, Pacific Gas and Electric auction, and we used to buy pallets of used tools. You guys don't do that anymore. You're never going to see one of these probably. But having said that, you will run into this. Your people will run into it in the field. And when I bought the tool, one of these tools, it didn't have the retainer. It came and it was just like your picture that you brought from the Queen Mary.
Yep.
And the reason it's not on there is because these didn't used to have retainers on them. They didn't have anything to hold a retainer on. So I got this tool and it looked just like the one that he showed you. And when I got it in, I said to him, well, I wonder if this thing still works. It was all, it was rusted up and stuff like that, but I cleaned everything out and it fired okay. So I went down to the machine shop and had a groove cut in it, just like this. Put the upper sleeve in. First I put of course, the piston in, and then put the upper sleeve in, and there's also a lower sleeve in here. And we'll discuss that anyway. So I put it all together, and that was 1968. No, I'm not 900 years old. Yeah.
Talking about that tool is on display in the Queen Mary's historic viewing room.
Because all of the Queen Mary's put together with rivets. Just like bridges.
Just like that.
Yeah. So, and this is the tool that they used to do it with. Well, the tool that I had bought, it was a Chicago Pneumatic. The serial number on the tool was 0006. Wow. It was the 6th tool ever made. It was made in 1906. It's 1968. Tool's still working. By the way, the parts are the same. They've never come up with a better way of making these things other than maybe putting the sleeve on there. But you don't see like 10 different retainers or anything like that. When my dad went out of business in 1989, when he closed his business down, that tool was still in the rental fleet. Should have bought that one, but I didn't do it. Anyway, the point is, the only point I'm making is these tools will hold up indefinitely if they're properly maintained. The biggest problem these days is that people, frankly, if you spend a few hours on the tool, you can't even justify it anymore. So the things that we see that wear upper sleeves, and these are designed to be what we call sacrifice pieces. They're going to break, okay? Because how hard is this tool hitting? The same as that bigger breaker. Something's got to give, right? Better to have this give, which you can replace quickly, or the most common piece that is constantly wearing out is this rubber bumper that fits on the bottom of the unit as it fits in there. And the reason for that is, it's very oily, so apologize. The reason for that is, again, sacrifice piece. This tool is hitting very hard. If the tool is dry fired, in other words, it's constantly, very common on job sites, you'll go to job sites and you'll see like duct tape around the throttle, or they'll just stand there and use it. They keep using the tool, they pull it away from the work that they're on, they never take their hand off the throttle. When that tool is hitting that hard against these pieces, you're going to crack these. That's going to happen. You're going to wear these out in a big hurry no matter what happens, the rubber bumpers, and we'll discuss that in just a moment. But the other thing that happens is you'll get broken retainers. The only reason 9 times out of 10 you get a broken retainer, here, just hold on to that for a second. Look at how heavy that sucker is. I mean, how could you break that? Because that's how hard this tool hits. This tool will actually cut through up to almost a ½ an inch of steel tank bottom with a ripping chisel on it. So it's, you know, I know I spend an inordinate amount of time on these, but what's happened is the industry has sort of figured it out too. We have, as an example, one white cap branch up in Northern California in San Francisco, sells 12 of these a month out of one branch. I'm going, who in the heck are you selling these to? Big drilling companies, anybody doing big foundation work. Because why? The concrete, which is very, very heavy slump, heavy pour concrete with a lot of additives and mixtures in it, it's like steel. The only way to break it off is with one of these. So I don't know what they're doing with them when they get done. My feeling is they may be throwing them in the bay, but I don't care. I keep selling them. So anyway, your tool goes in here. You drop your tool in from the top, put your retainer back on, and drop your spring back in. It's there we go. And then just feed it around like that, and you're back to work. Okay, now what do we have over there at the place? You're going to go through these. We have kits, so you've got upper sleeves, you've got lower sleeves. In addition to that, we have double kits like this. You see how these are orange and that is black? Why do we have 2 different types? This is polyurethane. Lasts almost twice as long as a standard rubber bumper. This bumper, when it's worn, how do I know it's worn? Another question you can ask when you're on the phone with somebody is that this lower sleeve, which is flush with this right now when the tool seals in, all of a sudden that lower sleeve will be sticking out anywhere from 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. Your rubber bumper is gone. How often do you replace rubber bumpers? Every 90 minutes to 2 hours, maybe 3 hours at the most. That's it. This thing will get so hot, it'll actually literally melt and feed out the bottom. Mainly from, again, dry firing. So we've got the pistons, we've got the kits, we've got all of that. What is this? This is the valve set for the top. Again, you see all these holes in this? This has got a pile of holes in it. This is just a lineup pin for this. I've left it loose the way that it is here. There's also this, there's just all these little holes in here. Any type of contaminants, as he knows, you end up, what do you use to clean them out with? Oh, pipe cleaners?
First thing we'll do is we got this spray stuff. It's kind of like Marvel mystery oil.
Yeah, good stuff.
Freaking load that thing up, blow some air through it, and if it doesn't work, you take it apart.
Yeah, every once in a while there's a couple of very, very small holes that are in here that are almost pinhole size. It is very common for those to get filled with some sort of contaminant. Why do we keep these? Because what do customers do? They run a lot of water through it. This gets rusted. Now you're into having to replace it. So upper sleeves, lower sleeves, they're going to crack, they're going to break. What do I recommend if somebody's taking these out? Whether it's for the chipping hammer or the rivet buster, send out more than a few of these. Like if you're going to be out for a week or two and you've got a couple of rivet busters or a couple of chipping hammers, send out 3 or 4 retainer springs with it. By the way, you don't charge them for them if they don't use them, right? These, I would never send a rivet buster out with less than six, at least a half a dozen, but more like a dozen of them. They're going to go through them.
Never happened here, huh?
Yeah, I don't think we send them out. Just
and
whatever the generator guy asks
Well,
for.
the problem is, here's what's happening. You're not only missing a sale, you're actually causing your client to go someplace. Now, I have to say this, and this is the beautiful thing about it. I'll never forget this for as long as I live. I'm up at Herc Rentals. Now, here's the guy that used to have, I think we had 800 rivet busters in my rental. When I had a single store in the San Francisco Bay Area, I had like 800 rivet busters. I had these things out, coming out my ears. I got this whole pallet of tools there. I must have had 30, 40 rivet busters. I didn't have anything. and customer wanted to take them out on rent. So where did I have to go to buy the retainer springs, the rubber bumpers, the upper lower sleeves?
United.
Had to drive right over around the corner at Sparks, and your manager over there, Wes, was just laughing until he couldn't see straight. He's I can't believe you're having to do this. And it's just a reality. I mean, you know, United does a very good job of stocking them. Yeah, I think you can go to pretty much any United branch in the entire United States or Canada. You have any other locations outside the U.S. yet?
There used to be one in Mexico. I don't know if
Yeah,
it's still
I don't know if it's still there. I can almost guarantee you that if I went into any of them, they would have these. That's the good news. The bad news is they don't need to be sitting there in a branch. They need to go out with the tool wherever you can do that. So anyway, we made these up. I just wanted to show these to you just for purposes. If you ever have a customer or a branch that's actually very interested in this, this is a very simple way. Sergio made these up for me. I'm going to use them next month. But this is for a rivet buster. And all we did was basically take one of the feet from one of the air tampers, and now I've got this piece of that. Now I've got a complete portable test stand that I can use, as long as I got air. So, very worthwhile. All right, now, perhaps the single most important couple of pieces. Here's our lay flat hose, which I think you may have seen, you may not have seen. Weighs about a third, quarter, or whatever, and as much as I'd love to sell you our hose, we're very proud of it. Okay, that's all I can say. So it's not to say that you guys don't buy any or sell any, you do. We stock some of it over there in the 50-foot and other lengths. Your hose jobber can probably do a little better job. I'm not going to go, see, he shouldn't be filming all this. I'll probably get in trouble with our guy that sells all our accessories. Anyway, the point is, it makes it convenient for show purposes, show and tell purposes. You want to have these whip checks on. And the reason you want to have the whip checks on, you're the safety person. This thing, and this one you can hold, it's not dirty. Have one of those get loose because it cracks hose, which this is actually a better hose because it doesn't do that. But where you normally have, you were talking about the hose leakage, which was perfect, leads right into this. I'm going to let Gary tell you Beth's story because he was there for it. I wasn't. Tell them what happened.
Yeah, so Beth has
national sales manager
national
for
sales
APT
manager
Tools.
that we met at the annual managers meeting, which connected me with Chet, which is why we're here today. She had a home in Texas that was destroyed by Hurricane Harvey. And after the weather receded, she was able to find out that some of her house was salvageable. So she went down to United Rentals, got a compressor and some sort of a chisel tool, and used it in her house to get rid of some of the damaged wood and flooring and things like that. And what tool happened that she happened to have did not have a whip check on it. And when she was using that chisel, her and her husband, that hose went off and it hit her right here. If it would have been a little higher, she would have died.
Yeah.
And it cut her so bad that she had major shoulder problems to this day. But yeah, so when she told me the story about whip checks, get them on every tool, because I'm an example of why I'm walking today. If I would have had it on, that would have been hurting, but I wouldn't be walking today if that would have been an inch higher, because it would have just hit me right in the head.
Various people have told various stories. I can't remember which one it was, but somebody, when it wasn't her story, but somebody else was talking about the importance of whip checks. Somebody in the class mentioned that they'd had that happen. They were not the person using the tool, but they were next to it, and when this came off it went like that, compound fractured their is that tibia? Yeah. I mean, just bang, you know, to the point where it's sticking out of the skin. It's some scary stuff. You don't want to be around it. Very, very simple answer. Use whip checks. We have whip checks for both the.
You should use the pins.
And the the pins are in there. I'm sorry, the pins as well. Yes, very important. I apologize. Good catch. See, I do too many of these and I start forgetting my details. Anyway, these can be pulled back go around a smaller tool, we have them for the larger tools as well. So you can go around the tool, you can go around the whip hook. It's not going anywhere once you do that. And it's a very simple fix at the time.
All right.
We use rubber hose and beat people other than in the face.
Punch them in the stomach.
Yeah, it's painful. So, you know, I mean, we're all laughing about it, but the truth is it's highly effective. I mean, you know, that it's no different than hammer. Yeah.
Let's say this thing came off.
Yes.
Would the hose just collapse? You
No.
know what I mean? It would
No.
just drop-
No.
It's still going to flop around.
Still
like
flop
a
around.
regular
Yes.
air
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Having a hose that weighs a third of what the other hose weighs is very, very attractive. So, trying to think if there was. The main thing I wanted you to see is that virtually every tool. Go ahead.
You were saying as when you dry fire these, it wears out that rubber in there.
Absolutely, Royd's. Well,
Hey,
and,
he said just he'll be parked out in the front. if
when you
wanna
dry
just
fire
load
one
it
of
into
those,
his
you're going to
truck.
break.
His
you're gonna
name is
break things
Dan.
inside the.
Yeah, Dan. He's
This piece
gonna
here
hang out there
is
in
going to get
front.
worn out
He's got a pickup,
very,
I
very
guess.
quickly. You're going to do
Thanks,
damage
man.
to the lower.
Bye.
See where these walls are down here? These pieces right here, they're going to get really worn out because it's not hitting against anything. It's just hitting against that. Now it's a sleeve, so it can
it's
be replaced.
replaceable, right?
But having said that, you better have a darn big press to push it out with. We do carry all of the. Let me make sure. I didn't bring any of those with us. But anyway, we keep all of these pieces. We keep the springs, the nuts, all the accessories you see here, all of the valves and everything like that. Everything is in stock there. These springs wear. It's not unusual. That's why you'll end up getting these
replace a
in.
lot of those.
Yeah, and they're designed to be that way. Again, back to what he was saying about having one piece be softer, other pieces be harder. Good. You want it that way because otherwise what happens is this wears out and it obviously costs more, but it wears out faster. So having those springs available, having these are going to wear, there's a little bushing in there that they all the cone, yeah, they all wear out. And anyway, pretty simple tools, generally speaking. I mean, compared to, you know, having to work on something with an engine in it or something like that, even hydraulics a lot of times because the pressures are so much higher in the hydraulic units. So air tools, I don't know if they're ever really going to find replacements. Everybody keeps saying that the electric tools hit as hard. I've never seen it. I mean, unless you disagree with me, Rick,
No, I'm not
because I haven't
disagreeing.
touched,
You're right.
honestly, I haven't touched an electric
the
60
Bosch
pound.
60?
Yeah, the Bosch
That's
60.
probably not the best one out there. isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know,
And by the way,
electric.
it started out as the best and it's still the best. Kango used to make one too, forever ago. But I still think it's the best tool. But I mean, I'll stand there and watch somebody using one of these things, especially like in a shopping mall or something like that. I can't help it. I'll walk up and I'll go, have you ever seen one of these? I'll pull up my APT site and I'll go, just watch that for a minute. And I said, here's my card. I said, you don't need to buy it from me, but for crying out loud, tell your boss to go down to the rental company down the street here. And I'll usually know because I have called on somebody there. And, you know, go to United, go get a compressor, go get a breaker, and you'll be done with this in, you know, an hour. Now, unless they're trying to, you know, basically pad their hours, I said, well, not only be done, but I said, it's going to hit 90 degrees. It's going to hit, I mean, especially in Phoenix, it's going to hit 110 out here. I said, you could get it all done in, you know, an hour or two. And especially if you're working on, you know, as you start going up, 6, 8, 10. And I'll tell you what these mixes that they're using these days, because we saw this at a demo, I don't know what they're putting in them, but the concrete's as hard as steel. I mean, it is staggering how hard that stuff is. So I love the air tools, always have, again, maybe in no small part because I'm not a very good mechanic and I could work on all of them, you know, because it just doesn't take that much. So that's my story.
And you're sticking to it.
I'm sticking to it. Yeah. Use the oilers, use the whip checks, send out the replaceable parts, and keep a lot of air tool steel around, which we are not, unfortunately. It's the razor blade business, so I don't understand why we don't have them, but we really are not very good at that. So you guys use what, Brunner and Lay here for the
again?
tool? Brunner and Lay for your tool steel, or Ajax, or Arrow, or Vulcan?
I think it's Brunner.
Brunner
Brunner,
Lane
yeah.
seems like an invoice I see occasionally.
Yeah, yeah. And Jeff's a great guy. I like him a lot. Our manufacturer's rep, Everett Company, handles the Vulcan line, which is also a great line of tools. I think there's a few others, but as good as I think we do other things, we do sell tool steel. We don't even stock it over there, which should tell you something.
Do you guys make any kind of a pin driver? They'll drive a pin out?
Specifically for...
Well,
Roll pins, little tiny roll pins that are
no,
stuck.
bigger,
Or,
like kingpins on axles.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
I don't make it, but yes, drift pin drivers. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. They make them.
We've used these.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, and they work really well.
Yeah, they do.
You can get those from either Jeff at Brunner and Lay, or you can get them from our manufacturer's rep, Vulcan. They make those.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And they make them. The best part is,
For that side, yeah.
because there's nothing wrong with using one of these, but how much more convenient to use a 30-pound tool.
Well,
And
we
yes,
started out with like those.
yeah.
And if it's not doing it, we start.
You start getting big, yeah.
We were strapping a
Yeah.
90 to a forklift.
What were you driving the drift
We were-
pins?
we were-
Buckets?
No, kingpins on a skip loader.
Oh, yes, exactly,
And
yes.
then the pins, where the booms articulate.
Okay. Before you finish filming, this is a good one. When you're talking to your Gen Rent
let
stores,
me know if you have another pallet you're going to wrap.
what he's asking
Jorge
about,
wants to get a video
that
of it.
is an
I just
ideal
heard you doing it. I was like, oh,
application
too late.
for an air tool. Because what you usually see
Thanks.
if you go out to a job site is they're not driving those drift pins out with an air tool. They're driving them out, very dangerous, with a sledgehammer and either somebody holding that piece, really bad, but it's common. They're either holding that piece, because you can't drive a sledgehammer and hold the pin
We would
driver.
take the pin and weld a long pole to it.
That's right.
And the guy would stand way over here.
Yeah.
You know, but still, you're gonna get shit that could come
That's
flying off
absolutely
that
right.
pin
Yeah,
when you
and
hit
there and virtually, to your point earlier, nobody's wearing face shields. So what's another opportunity for? Sell face shields. No more metal under the chin or in the face. So, but that I hadn't even thought about that. But yeah, I used to send those out regularly, especially to the plants. Another opportunity inside the refinery and plants. Let them know those, but whether it's a chipping hammer or rivet buster, which those are my two recommendations because they can be used on the side. But even a bigger tool with a drift pin driver, you can get a lot of work done. Because especially if you're in older units, older plants, whatever. That's what the rivet buster. That's what the rivet buster is for. That's why those are there. Is they used to drive the rivets out that busted, and they do break. You know, not obviously somebody did something right though, because how many of our bridges are over 100 years old and have yet to have anything replaced on them, which is pretty staggering, because they never were designed to do that.
Yeah.
But they have held up. So somebody who had some crafts skills a long time ago. I'm not so sure how our level is these days, but
Hey,
yeah. Anyway, it's good stuff.
use this bathroom right here, please.
All right. Any other
use
questions?
this one right here. Sorry. Oh, no.
Well,
use that one.
think-
Bring a rock drill.
Oh no, I've got them. I just didn't think
We
that
don't
was
use
something.
that
Yeah. Okay.
that often.
No, I've actually got a cutaway too. I wish I had brought it now. You know what? I'll bring it over next time I come by.
Okay.
Yeah, because it is really cool to see the cutaway. He saw it yesterday. He was asking about the rock drill.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's really neat to see. And that's another tool that's a money-making son of a gun, because you're going to go through bits, and because customers are silly, they're going to screw up the whole back end on it because they won't use. Do you know the difference with using a rock drill as far as the oiler goes? You need a continuous feed oiler. These all put out, when you see that little number inside there, essentially what that is how many drops per minute. Can you see the little numbers in there?
Yes.
Yeah, that's about how many drops per minute come out of it. Well, on the
Oh,
rock
wow.
drills,
What
on
do
the
you
rock
gotta do?
drills,
Open it all the way up.
this won't. It still won't do it. You need a separate. It's actually a continuous feed oiler, and if you don't use it, you're going to end up with about $600 or $800 minimum, even at your cost, about 800, 850 bucks on a rock drill.
Anything other than this.
Oh yeah, I'll bring the rock drill and one of the oilers. Yeah, you need to see that. It's round. They're round. They hold. They got a bigger reservoir, and same thing. Got to have to be 8 to 10 feet from the unit. But I will bring one of those by. You know, this is. I don't mind telling you. I'm not applying. I don't mind telling you. I love being here. I mean, this is just. You know, I had a last place I had was a 26,000 square foot warehouse, and when we came into it, it had been a metal fabricating facility. So it was black. I mean, everything in the building was just so dark. I mean, they had all the lights on, and you literally had to kind of almost do this, right? My guys were all coatings guys. I had a surface preparation business, so I had the shop blasting and stuff like that. And they said, "Oh, we can fix this up, Chet." And I said, "Well, why don't I just hit them for a leasehold improvement?" He said, "No, you're going to have to pay for that. We can do it." So I just let them have at it for about, I don't know, about a week or so, something like that. And they said, "You need to come on over. We want to show you." They said, "Let us just do it." I said, "Okay." I said, "I'll stay away." So I came back at the end of the week. All the floors had been done in a off-white coating in the walls and all that stuff. It was so bright in there, we had to cut back on the level of wattage on the. So yeah, it's, you know, that kind of stuff was fun, but I do miss it. I miss. I guess I miss the immediacy of having to do everything like he was saying. You know. Oh, you were saying about how you did the. You got the stuff delivered, then you got.
Oh yeah,
sidetracked.
so we use a company called Curry,
Uh-huh.
and when somebody, say in Hesperia, calls and they have a need for one of those sanders, and they'll look in inventory, they don't have one, but they pick up the phone, they call Will, say, "Will, you got 5 of those, shows in your inventory,
Right.
Can you confirm?"
Right.
Will will come out and say, "Yeah, I got it. Where do you want to ship to?"
Right.
So my guy needs it right now. He's working at a job at so-and-so.
Right.
And we use a company called Curry. They'll be here within 20 minutes. I don't know if they're just sitting around the corner waiting for us to call. They'll pick it up
What are
and
they
get it to the
driving?
job site. Cars, whatever it is we're designing. 'Cause,
Yep.
I mean, if we're delivering big pallet stuff,
Oh yeah. Oh no.
they'll
yeah,
ship
yeah.
a truck.
Oh really?
a
Okay.
pickup
okay.
truck, but it's
Okay.
usually a car,
Yeah.
and we get it over there. That's how we get our product in the hands same day.
I'm only laughing and smiling because, of course, there wasn't anybody sitting around like that when we would use taxi services.
Oh yeah.
I can't tell you how many times.
Telling you, we use
whether
it daily.
Whether it was the Shell, which is now Martinez Refining, which, by the way, I'm going to name all the ones you have the contract for, and the other one as well. But there were 7 plants, 7 refineries. Then they cut it back to 6. But ConocoPhillips up there, Valero, Martinez Refining, Marathon, all the Martinez. That was all of our service thing. Well, you know, sometimes they call and every truck I had was out. What am I going to do? Walk it over? They couldn't send anybody. Pick up the phone, call yellow cab, just take it over to the gate, and believe me, even in those days, if you didn't know the people at the gate, if you didn't know the security guards, like they weren't your buddy, they weren't going to take anything there. And so I literally had their phones at the gate. Again, back to personal, to your point about personal relationships. I would literally call the person at the gate and go, "You know, I got a hot one here." I said, "Here's what's going on." He said, "Don't leave this sitting up here for long, Chet." I said, "No problem." I mean, I didn't do it very often, but it was.
Yeah, the critical thing about us being a supplier for our Gen Rents customer, those are our customers, our other locations.
Yeah.
And if we can't provide that tool in the customer's hands same day,
Yeah.
they'll walk right over next door to Equipment
Oh, yeah.
Share and get it, because I'm sure they got the same thing.
Okay. I just got to ask you. You should probably shut this off because now we're talking about the competition.